obviously tomorrow's UTEP, and then you kind of get ready for the third part of the season. Health-wise, how are you guys doing headed in, I guess, into March Madness?
I think we're doing fine. We're nicked up a little bit, but everybody's nicked up this time of year. So we may monitor some guys as far as reps and practice and maybe give them an extra day here and there, which we have an opportunity to, over the last 3 or 4 days and certainly the next week. So, but no, there's no complaints here. We're not 100%, but nobody is this time of year.
Hey, Coach, when you look at this team, obviously playing well at the right time, you said the other night just hitting their stride. Are there any questions you still want answered before the postseason gets here, or anything you still don't quite know?
You know what? I like to see some consistency offensively. I think I'd like to see guys get some confidence. Shooting the ball going into the postseason. I watched that game last night, and you guys did too. It was two really good teams playing, but the shot making was unbelievable there for a stretch. I mean, it was the guys just making shots, and they're semi-guarded or guarded shots. I mean, there wasn't a lot of ton of wide open looks, and that's the one thing I feel like that we haven't quite put together yet is our ability to maybe do that consistently or course of over an 8 or 10 minute stretch of a game where it can kind of carry you. So I still feel like we got to manufacture more points than what we should, and I don't think it's as quite like it was a month ago, but I don't think we're where we need to be yet.
Hey, Coach, as you guys head into the postseason, obviously the Big 12 tournament and the NCAA tournament's coming up soon. Going through the season with all the protocols associated with COVID-19, how do you feel your players have responded to it, and what does it say about them to get to this point this season without any major interruptions? Knock on wood regarding COVID.
That's a knock on wood question, because I'll answer it and say how proud I am of them and how responsible they've been, and they've all been 10s and those sorts of things. But we've had good fortune too. I mean, I'm sure we've had guys sit around the Christmas table, just like other guys have sat around their Christmas table, and we haven't had some things happen to us negatively like that. But it's been a grind. I don't feel bad for the players, but I certainly am sympathetic to the grind it's been, and I think that the reward was that we were, everything goes as scheduled tomorrow. We're able to play all games that we could schedule. We're probably one of the few programs out there that's been able to do this, and we haven't had any pauses, even though January would have been a good time to pause, but based on how we played. But I think we got our legs underneath us again, and I'm proud of the guys for that. But the real responsibility and discipline, starts right now. So we just got to make sure we finish strong.
And then what have you seen from UTEP, obviously, as you guys prepare for them tomorrow?
They can score the ball, and we watch some defensive possessions that we'll show our guys, say, this is how you guard. I mean, flying around and activity. And, I've known Rodney a long time. He was at Texas for a long time and with Rick and been at Fresno. But I think they got a good team. And I think that it looked like to me that they're healthy and playing well together. And although they haven't had a lot of pauses, if any, because their main starters have started every game. So that tells me they've been pretty fortunate too in that regard. But I like their team. They're capable. This is a good game for us. Good game, good time to play it.
Coach, I was going to ask you, what do you want out of this game? Just to keep the rhythm going and not have such a long pause before the tournament? Is there something specific you want to take up a notch before tournament time? I mean, is there something you can do with this game that's going to be really helpful to you?
Karen, I do think it'll be really helpful. What I want to do is win. I want to approach it just like a normal game. I don't want our guys to lose their edge, because we kind of built a little bit of an edge and we got a little momentum now. I want that to continue. I want to play the same way that we're going to have to play to be successful in next week in the Big 12 tournament and beyond. So I just felt like that 11 days was too long to go without doing that. So So yeah, we can get a lot out of this game, but anybody that thinks that this is just a throw-in game, they're wrong. We're not approaching it that way at all. We're approaching that we need to play well, we need to continue some momentum, but most importantly, we need to win this game.
Hey, looking ahead a little bit to the NCAA tournament and just the format with everything being around Indianapolis, do you see any pros and cons for the setup this year?
Do I see the pros and cons as far as
different format? You're in Indy for potentially a long time, depending on how it goes.
Yeah, I think there's some pros. I think being in Indy, hopefully for a long time, could be a positive. Obviously, I think that there'll be less distractions this year than there ever has been with tickets and family members and that kind of stuff, because we're not going to be able to interact with them. We're kind of basically just stuck with each other, and so I can see that kind of being a positive. I can also see it be very draining and tiresome too. But I think one thing when we go to Maui or when we go to Orlando or wherever we go, and you have the energy of having all those teams stay in same hotels or whatnot, and you're crossing paths all the time, and pride becomes a factor and everything like that. I think it'll be just like the NBA bubble was last year in Orlando. I think that even though you think, well, there's not as many fans or no fans, and how can you generate energy? The energy comes from, see that guy over there, he's trying to kick your butt and you're trying to kick his. That's where the energy comes from. And so I think from that standpoint, it'll be positive, because I think they have all 68 teams staying in 4 hotels. Is that correct, Dan? Do you know? Is that so? At least that's what we've heard. So, I mean, you're not going to be able to, you can't go outside. You can't leave the hotel. You're stuck with everybody that's there. And there'll be some juices flowing just from the competitive standpoint, just with inside the hotel, which I think will be good.
Along those same lines, you talked a lot preseason, during the season, about just how thankful you are to play. Have you thought much about how thankful you'll be to get postseason basketball back, and you're right on the cusp of that?
You know what? Yes, but I haven't given it a lot of thought. I feel like that all along we would get to this point. Last year was so disappointing, because that group of guys last year played well enough throughout the whole year that they deserved whatever the best had to offer, because being a number 1 seed and possibly the number 1 overall seed, and the attention and the stage that goes along with that, those guys played to a level that they deserve that, and they didn't get to. So that's disappointing. But I haven't looked at it like that as much this year. This year's been different for me. This has been a year, hey, let's do as well as we can, and let's hope we get to the finish line. That's been the year. Like last year was no. We're playing for this, and we're playing for a 1 seed. We're playing for championships. Anything else is not acceptable. With this year's been a little bit different in that, we were kind of eliminated from playing for the Big 12 championship because of our play, but the play was less important than mental health, all the other things that go on. I've never been with a group in January that I'm thinking, how do we motivate them through February? And so we went through that, and that's what a lot of teams go through year to year. We just hadn't had to have that, and to see how the guys responded through that and everything, I think is very encouraging. And so we've grown a lot this year as a team, but not in all the ways that maybe one would anticipate. It's in ways through failures we've grown, and through isolation and through things like that we've grown, and have allowed us to probably play the way we're playing now. So I'll look forward to it, but it's not something that I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, thank God this is happening. I'm just thinking, like, just happy to be a part of it. And now let's just see what happens.
Hey, Coach, do you mind talking about the connection between Bryce Thompson and DeJuan Harris, and also what their role will be going forward?
I don't know if their role will be any different moving forward. I think Bryce, if he can kind of, got to understand something. He's only played 3 weeks, and coming off of being off 8 or 9 weeks. So I'm real proud of the progress he's made, but I don't think his hand has allowed him to be as an efficient of offensive player as what he could. So I'd like to see that out of him. I like to see Juan remain aggressive and actually look to make plays or look to score himself. Some, not a lot, but some, which he did obviously against Baylor. But I don't know what their roles will be. I think it would benefit us if their roles were one in which they could each play substantial minutes. So that means Marcus and Ochai and certainly CB and Jalen would probably be more fresh to finish games. And that's not being negative, saying they wouldn't be in there to finish it, because I have confidence that both could be in there to finish it. But I think Marcus was a little bit better the other day because he didn't have to play quite as many minutes, and when he was in there, he's a little fresher.
All those years of knowing Bryce and being around the family and finally getting him here, how much have you enjoyed being around him, coaching him, watching him? And I know he sat out a lot, but still.
Yeah. Well, he's had a hard year. He's had a hard year, but it's in relation to what Doak's freshman year was. It's not as hard, because Doak had a season-ending, injury and that kind of stuff. But Bryce would have put himself in a position, if he hadn't been injured, to be a starter now and certainly be a guy that could be playing 20, 25 minutes a game. So it was a setback for him, and he was just, in my opinion, he was just going to find his groove in January. And I do think there's a correlation to us not playing as well as him not being out there, just from an energy standpoint, a positivity standpoint. But I love coaching him. He's great. He's terrific. And his best ball's definitely in front of him. And he wants to be good so bad that you can't help but respect that.
In your eyes, does he play differently when he's playing on the floor with Marcus versus when he's playing on the floor in place of Marcus?
I think it's probably easier for him as it would be Marcus. It's easier for Marcus to play, I believe, oftentimes when Bryce or DeJuan is in there, because he doesn't have to be a primary handler. He can, you got another guy that can do it, and there's not pressure to run a play with him initiating that kind of stuff. I think the same thing with Bryce. With when Marcus is in the game, I think you have that same thing. You kind of have a security blanket, even though you're more than capable. Whereas with Marcus sitting in the game and we're playing, let's say Tristan, Christian, Och, and Jalen, let's just say, now that puts all the pressure on him to initiate and things like that, which probably, he's capable of doing, but I think everybody likes security blankets. So, I didn't answer your question, but I think having two ball handlers in the game, whether it be 20 minutes a game or 18 minutes or 25 minutes, whatever it is, I think it definitely serves its purpose in a good way.
Bill, a year ago, where were you guys when they canceled the Big 12 tournament? Were you at shoot-around?
No. We were actually we had just left pregame meal. We had just done scout. All the guys went up their rooms to get dressed, and we got the call as the coaches, I believe, were going upstairs to get dressed, saying it's been canceled. So we didn't ever get to the point that we got to the arena.
Do you see a Rick Barnes influence on Rodney Terry?
I was thinking about that earlier, but they're not running the same stuff. Defensively, I could probably see some same similarities. Rick went through some transformations when I was here. Tough, hard-nosed, man-to-man, and then he went through a period of time, if you remember, where they played a ton of 2-3 zone, and then went back to the tough, hard-nosed, man-to-man, where they kind of mixed it up and everything. And I'd say Rodney would be more of the man-to-man, and of course they'll play some zone, they'll play some 3-2 zone, but more of a man-to-man coach like Rick is doing now at Tennessee, more so than when he had Kevin and those guys. He played a lot of zone when he had Kevin and those guys.
I know that this was a concern of yours when you were trying to add a game. Did they end up following Big 12 protocol for testing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. They what we required, which is consistent with what they were already doing, I believe, was to, the 3 tests a week, non-consecutive days. And it was required over a 2-week period, if I'm not mistaken. So they've had 5 or 6 tests since leading up until this game, over a 2-week period. So I don't think they were doing anything special for us. I think that was what they were doing anyway.
Yeah.
Anything else for Coach?
Yeah. Hey, a little off topic.
What are your thoughts on the season Joel is having in the NBA?
Well, I follow it fairly close. Obviously he's one of two or one of three right now as a leading candidate for MVP. To me, it looks like he's scoring more by attacking the basket and drawing fouls. He's shooting a ton of free throws, those sorts of things. So I think he's playing to his strengths. He's so talented, he can do anything. But I think with that body and that size and strength, he's playing to that. And there's nobody in the league that can mess with him one-on-one inside. So I'm really happy for him, proud of him, and to think this is what he's doing, guys. And he basically didn't play for 2.5 years, and this is what he's doing. So, and I don't know what Joe would be now. What would he be? 27, maybe. So, I don't know. So maybe 28, but he's definitely played his way into earning all the money from this contract and probably doubling the next one. So I would say he's in pretty good shape.
He's 26.
He's only 26.
Yep.
So isn't that unbelievable? He's 26 and Wiggs is 26, and they've already signed contracts for, I believe collectively, both right around 190 million, with still maybe one big contract or 1.5 big contracts left. It's incredible what position those guys have put themselves into.
Yeah.
Bill, with the past year, you guys couldn't go on the road recruiting, but from what we've seen with guys committing and guys signed, you guys have done pretty well. Are you hopeful in the future? You don't have to go on the road all year. I mean, think about how different your year has been not being allowed to go on the road.
Gary, that question got me all choked up. So I think this is one thing I've always thought in recruiting, and I've heard Tom Izzo say this dozens of times, and I actually agree. Everything's relative. If the rules are the same for everybody, you're still going to get approximately the same guys. Now, that doesn't always play true, because you may not get somebody that if you were able, that's outside your area or that was unknown or whatever. But it just seems like to me that if they allow everybody to have 130 days and everybody recruits 130 days, we'll get the same caliber player, and everybody else will too. If they allow 0 days, and I think that's kind of played out. I think not being on the road certainly hasn't helped us more than anybody else, but I don't think it's been a huge detriment. What's been a detriment, if anything, is just we got a cloud hanging over our head that hadn't passed yet. So that's been the problem, but it hasn't been anything related to time on the road, in my opinion. Now, with that being said, more mistakes will be made. I mean, people will make more mistakes because their ability to evaluate and study and get to know and project probably won't be as good as what it would be if you could see them all the time. But I still think it's pretty comparable.
You think it'll be right back to normal when people can travel and visits can be taken and stuff like that, or do you think this will change the way recruiting is done?
No, I think it'll. I think now you're looking at a situation where if Oklahoma is out recruiting and we're not, we're losing. If we're out recruiting and Oklahoma's not, they're losing. It's going to be a situation that whatever the rules are, they will be maximized by the schools. So nobody, I don't think, will say, well, this worked okay during this time. Well, there's a reason why it worked that way, because everybody was under the same guidelines. But you don't ever want to put yourself in a position where others can and you can't. So it'll go back to the way it was, in my opinion.
All right, Coach. Thank you. Thanks, Coach.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Coach.